the first one. So before we get into the formal roll call, I do want to go around the room and do introductions so we know who's here and who's representing each region. I think we have a couple people online as well. Shara, is that right? So we'll work here in the room first and then go to our online participants too. So John, do you mind starting for us?
John Anzavino, Region 6.
Thank you, John.
Testing.
I'm John King. I'm on the state board and in the past have worked with Region 8 as well. So kind of a little bit of both sides.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Region 8. I am Deborah Flippo, the Executive Director of the Region 8.
Hi, my name is Cody Anderson. I am with DHCD. I'm a program administrator for Go Virginia.
Good morning. My name is Ann Cundy. I'm the Executive Director of the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission in Stanton. We are one of the support organizations to Region 8.
Good morning. I am Jen Weaver. I am with the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, and we are partner with Go Virginia Region 8.
We're strong on Region 8 on this end, apparently. So I'm Allison Barner-Denby, and I'm the incoming Executive Director for Region 8. I'll be taking place of Deborah, and she's been so kind to wait a couple of months to cross-train before passing the gavel. So thank you.
Good morning. I'm Yolanda Shields from Region 8, and I'm the incoming chair for the Region 8 Council.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lynn Taylor, and I'm with Region 5.
I'm Eddie Amos. I'm chair of Go Virginia Region 2. I'm sitting in for Richmond Vincent, who couldn't be in today.
Jim Chang, State Board, but also Region 8.
Rob Archer, I'm not from Region 8. Region 9, Vice Chair. Thank you for having us.
Hi, I'm Randy Lale from Region 3. I've been involved with Go Virginia since before we could call it Go Virginia.
Chris Lloyd McGuire Woods.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shara Gibson. I'm the program manager of Go Virginia, and we would like to invite our virtual members to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Delegate Michelle Maldonado.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Delegate Michelle Lopes Maldonado on the state board, but also, as mentioned, one of the new members of the advisory committee once that's formally approved. Glad to be here, bringing a background in technology, business, workforce development, and education.
Thank you, Delegate. We also have a council member from Region 7.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sumit Srivastav and Vice Chair of the Region 7 Council.
Thank you. And Region 6.
John Anzavino, I'm chair of Region 6. Unfortunately, was unable to attend today due to a prior commitment, but I'm glad to be here online through about noon.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone else that is attending virtually. Madam Chair, may I move forward with the roll call?
Yes, 1 second though. I just wanted to thank our hosts here at the Blue Ridge Community College. Without them hosting us, it made this very easy for us to be here. John, thank you for setting this up. And again, from the state board, want to thank the regions and the regional councils for all the time and countless hours that you as volunteers have given to your communities, your regions, and ultimately to Go Virginia. Because without you all, like Go Virginia would not be working, right? We wouldn't have money, we wouldn't have projects to give money to. So the work that you all do here or do it at the local level and the regional level is critical to Go Virginia's success and ultimately our state's success. So thank you for everyone for your continued time and commitment to this work. Shara, if you want to go ahead and do roll call. Thank you.
All right, so again, welcome everyone that's joining us in person and virtually. Members who are joining us virtually should use their cameras if they're available. To keep our sound quality, we kindly ask members of the members of the public to keep your device on mute unless you're speaking. This meeting is being recorded and the minutes will be provided. I will now conduct the roll call. Again, if you're joining us virtually, just please confirm your presence by saying yes on the virtual call. So I'll start with the chair, Leah Frailmau,
Here?
Jim Chang, John King, and Delegate Michelle Maldonado.
Here.
Thank you all. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a way to switch the screen so we can see people and also maybe see the agenda as well? Before we move to the public comment. That and if we could see the virtual participants, is that possible? Okay, all right. Don't worry about it then. Thank you. Yes, if you don't mind moving to the public comment.
At this time, we welcome any public comments. This portion of our meeting allows members to share their perspectives and any input about today's agenda. At this time, we'll open up the floor for comments for the public. And as a reminder, just if you're joining virtually, just please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. Do we have any public comments today? Like this? All right, well, it doesn't seem like we have any public comments, so we will close the public comment period.
Thank you. So we have a little less than 2 hours today for our first meeting, and we have a pretty packed agenda. So the first half of the agenda will be informational items, some background on Go Virginia, the history, and where how we've gotten to the point we are now. We also have some updates on the JLARC study and the work that has come out of that. And this is not the first time that Go Virginia has engaged the councils for feedback and kind of improvement opportunities. And so Shara will share a little bit about that history and some of the feedback, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the 2024 conversations that we've had. And then hopefully most of the meeting that we spend time with today is discussion around what this group can do and how we leverage each other and leverage the different layers of Go Virginia to really do more for our state. So most of the meeting should be of an open discussion around what this regional council committee can become, but we got to get there. So we're going to move right into the informational section now.
Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Again, Chris Lloyd from McGuire Woods Consulting, and Randy Lale has already alluded to this, but Go Virginia is the culmination of a lot of work that goes back now 10 years. Is when the original concept started with Go Virginia, and it was a number of business leaders from around Virginia who saw some deep problems with Virginia's economy and our competitiveness, particularly coming out of the 2008 recession. What had happened in the past in Virginia's economy, and I'll walk through this very, very quickly, is usually when we went into recession, we didn't go down as much as the rest of the country, but when we came back out, we did okay. And there were some very unique factors that came together in the 2008 recession. And when we hit that recession, again, we didn't go down as far as the rest of the country, but our ascent out of the recession was very, very weak. And so the business leaders came together and decided we need to do something about this, and resulted in the growth in this initiative. As Randy alluded to, this was not the original name for it. It was originally called Regions Work, was the first thing we'd come up with. And then it was called VIGOR, the Virginia Initiative for Growth and Opportunity in Every Region. And we just figured that VIGOR sounded like a good ad for a new ED pill. And so Go Virginia was what we came up with instead. And so what I thought it would be helpful for everybody, because a lot of you've dedicated the last 7 years to Go Virginia, but to really understand very, very quickly and briefly the origin story of Go Virginia, kind of how it came together. And this is the slide deck. Randy probably saw it in 2015, 2016. Some of you may have seen it around that time, but to really help you understand what was behind Go Virginia, the thinking that was behind Go Virginia. So again, this was the slide deck we used and really pitched it as this bipartisan business-led game-changing initiative, provide a new framework for strengthening the economy in every region through enhanced collaboration by business, education, and local government that is incentivized and encouraged by the state. Those were the founding principles of Go Virginia in 2014 and 2015. And think about all that you have done, you and your colleagues have done around this state that fits into this. I mean, that is the driving principle. And so whenever you wonder, why are we doing this? It all goes back to some of these original concepts that were behind Go Virginia. The reason Go Virginia is needed is because a lot of things were broken with Virginia's economy, and you're not going to change it because a lot of those obstacles are legal. A lot of them are constitutional challenges, but we had seen other initiatives in the past where if you threw an incentive out there, you got people to work together. So the idea of providing some sort of cash incentive to get localities to work together to solve the problems they then identified in their regions in order to address some of these challenges was the way that Go Virginia was set up. Again, this whole idea that it was about collaboration and around high-paying jobs has been a principle that's been with Go Virginia since the beginning. As Go Virginia started to evolve from 2015 and 16 into the actual legislation which was passed, bless you, the group commissioned this study that's done by Steve Fuller at George Mason University that looked at some of those economic problems that face Virginia. You see here Virginia's economy. Again, we were trailing the national average by then. What was happening, we were trailing a lot of our competitor states. And you see that the growth in Virginia compared to our competitor states as we were coming out of the recession. Again, look what happened during the recession. We didn't go down that much. But coming out of the recession, we were the most anemic growth among our southeastern competitor states. That was a time you see, look at ranking of Virginia with regards to our growth, 49th in the country, folks. That's horrible, just terrible. And what was happening in the Virginia economy, what this study showed, again, this is a job growth comparison to the other states, even though our unemployment rate was looking pretty good, the number of people, the labor force was shrinking in Virginia. So that was some reason why our economic numbers were looking good, but we were really taking a lot of hits on military spending and military employment in the state. Federal procurement was falling around the state. Payrolls, and this is where the study really dove into. What happened in the 08 recession was Virginia lost a lot of good paying jobs, and we were trading them out for low paying jobs. We were taking professional positions in Northern Virginia, in the urban areas around, the urban suburban areas around the Northern Virginia, and we were trading them out for jobs that weren't paying as well. And that was having a drag on the Virginia economy. This shows that, again, payroll change in the various sectors. Northern Virginia recovered okay, but a lot of the other regions were not doing well. And we were dragging down. We were trading in jobs in financial services, information services for a lot of leisure and hospitality and retail trade. So again, the unemployment statistics mask that, because the unemployment statistics just look at a job as a job as a job. It didn't matter. And every job has value. I want to be very clear about that. But when you're counting on your Virginia economy counts on a lot of people making this amount of money, and you're trading out those jobs for people making $38,000 a year, that has a significant negative drag on the Virginia economy, which was estimated that we were down, even though employment was up compared to where we were pre-recession, the Virginia economy was nearly $9 billion smaller because of this trade-off that was happening. And so Go Virginia was seen as a way, again, through that collaboration and focus on high-paying jobs, as a way to reverse some of those trends. So again, we set out the mission here. Many of you are familiar with, again, this mission and how it drives what you do at the regional level. Again, some reasons why Go Virginia was different from other economic development initiatives around regional collaboration. They've been done in the past. Again, having senior business leadership, that's where y'all at the regional councils are so important. Having it regionally driven, not just a state imposed strategy, but really having the regions come up with their own ideas and using incentives and other ways to turn around the Virginia economy. Again, I will make the slides available just so everybody sees this. We were very clear and we did a lot of polling with regards to Go Virginia to not refer to it as regionalism, because that convinced when you polled on the topic of regionalism, that led people to think we were going to consolidate schools. And that obviously had a great deal of opposition when we polled on it. So that's why we talked about regional collaboration instead, and why that concept remains in there. The whole idea was, how would Go Virginia work? That essentially the state board would set the policies, the regionals would do their prioritization of what we needed to grow. This is even before the legislation was written. drafted post. So you see what these concepts were: regional thinking, collaboration at all levels, so that we can address the challenges that face Virginia's regions. We started to think about what the regions would look like, and you'll see those boundaries are exactly what happened. So essentially the PDCs were merged together to come up with the boundaries that we now have for Go Virginia. And then this was the concept behind the legislation that created Go Virginia, which had the section of success slide that talks about what was achieved through the 2016 session. So not only the initial funding for Go Virginia, the legislature also put forward that year money for a credentialing effort, the community college system, a bond package, and other research and development initiatives in the higher education system. So this is just now, we're predicting it's going to go forward. So the legislation became law. The guidelines working group was starting to be established. The first board meeting was in September. And you see again how Go Virginia was a very methodical, well thought through process to get it off the ground. Some ideas that we thought were going to be where Go Virginia's regions were going to put in money in credentialing, site development, commercialization, research and development, startup. It's actually very similar to what actually the programs that have been done. So we were very clear from the beginning that Go Virginia would not be about transportation projects. It wouldn't be about marketing or incentive grants to private companies or trade missions or quality of life projects. But there's been a little bit of adjustment to some of these, but again, the idea was to be focused on incentivized collaboration around high-paying jobs. And then we broke out what would be the roles between the state board and the Go Virginia Foundation as a nonprofit. So that's just, I wanted to quickly run through that, and then y'all have heard discussion of, and how do I share this screen here? I'm going to play a little bit of. All right, just wait 1 second. So y'all are aware of, we've talked about the Go Virginia 2.0 initiative. So this was what we sold in 2016. That was 3 governors ago, and there are 100 members of the General Assembly who are in the General Assembly who are not there now. So there's a whole new group of people, not only our legislators and our elected officials, but of course, we're now cycling through many people at the regional council level. So a lot of people who did not get the original idea of Go Virginia to hear the story. But of course, we sold it conceptually at that time. So the foundation decided last year that what they wanted to do was retell the story of Go Virginia and tell it with actual facts and figures. And we have started building. We're going to be going into the field in December to start polling regarding Go Virginia. And we've started building out a video to tell the Go Virginia story. Many of you, thank you at the regional council who sent us video. We are still incorporating that. But what this is just a very quick 2 minutes that we put together from when we filmed in Danville. And I wanted to leave you on this. It's 2 minutes long, so you can start to feel good about what you've accomplished with Go Virginia, because you're going to hear some really great stuff here. And you tell me when to hit. Ready? I'm not telling you.
The regions. The regional councils are composed of business volunteers to make a difference.
Prior to Go Virginia, the communities competed against each other. The business community saw no benefit in that. We just wanted the whole region to have an opportunity for good jobs and good economic growth.
The process that was developed is about the local leaders, public sector, private sector, working together to develop projects that will move a certain region forward. Go Virginia helped us pilot the GoTech initiative. We put that technology in young people's hands, but also to expose them to the in-demand, high-skill, high-wage manufacturing jobs that we had available across the region.
Middle school is that age that you connect them and really get that excitement. We needed to make sure we put programs in place and give students opportunities at the middle school to be engaged.
Precision machining is just what stuck out to me. So that's what I went for. That's what I'm still doing. And I'm in my 2nd year of it now. I love it.
Forever, I thought I was going to be a nurse. And then when we did the welding simulator, I thought it was really cool. And then I finally found exactly where I want to be.
Prior to this, obviously they didn't even realize that these were opportunities that existed. And I can tell you the benefit is going to be tremendous. The beauty and the wisdom of why Go Virginia is working is that the strength and knowledge
about community is within the community.
Partnership is key. Collaboration is key. I think localities need to understand that you can't do anything in a vacuum anymore. You can't be siloed.
Cultivating thriving ecosystems around target sectors that are important to Virginia's future. That is the secret sauce.
Creating that strategic focus makes a difference. Go Virginia is really good at that, and we'll take that further as we go into the next decade.
Eventually, that will be a full 10-minute video with featuring every region and successful projects in each region so that you can bring Go Virginia to life. Not just tell the story of the money and not just talk about process, but show how, again, Go Virginia is impacting lives across Virginia. So hopefully we'll have that ready within the next month, but I did want to preview at least a little bit of it as it stands right now. And again, thank you for all that y'all are doing to make Go Virginia succeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Move on to the update and the overview of the previous regional council engagement workshops and initiatives. Shara Gibson will be walking us through that.
All right. Good morning again, everyone. If you can refer to your meeting packets, you'll find a memo that's dated in April 2022. And the reason why this is so important because it highlights the work that has been done already, and we're going to be building on that today. So in 2020 and 2022, we conducted several engagement workshops aimed at building stronger connections amongst the regional councils and the state board. Some of the four main themes that came from these previous work groups are around the following. So regional collaboration and match, talent development, and a focus on the traded sector industries. Just to give you all an example, we were able to make some movement on some of these things. So for example, we were able to extend our board policy to have a more favorable match policy, a more flexible policy for regions as well. Another example is that the board developed a waiver policy that considers the fiscal stress of the unique challenges faced by each region. So I'm just providing some examples of movement that we have made on previous feedback provided by regional councils. And I encourage you all to refer to the memo in the packet to read in detail the feedback that was provided. And if you have any further questions, please reach out to DHCD staff and we'll be able to provide more detail on the progress that we made around those themes. Thank you.
Thank you. Cody Anderson will now give us an update on the JLARC report and the initiatives that have come out from that work. That is also in your packet. If you want to refer to the table that has kind of the status updates as well as he's going through them.
Thank you, Leah. Today I'm going to talk about JLARC, which I recognize may not be the most exciting topic in the world. So I give a very brief, and when I say brief, I think it was 2 minutes at the Go Virginia State Board meeting about JLARC. But since I have a lot of people who aren't necessarily state board members here, I just want to talk you through the history of it, where the Regional Councils Committee falls in, and kind of where we are and where we're going to go. So JLARC, for those of you who may not have been through a JLARC audit like we have been, is really a commission of legislators, both senators and House of Representatives. And what they do is they look at a program and they say, are you doing what was legislatively intended, and what do your impacts look like? What this looked like for us as a program was a lot of data requests, a lot of what are the past projects, what is closed, what are your processes, is everything efficient? So over time, we provided all this information and it all matriculated in one report. This report, which actually I'm going to, for those of you online right now, hit the enter button, you will have access to the report. In case you want to look at it, those of you who have access to a packet currently, you can see all the JLARC recommendations. So there are a number of different things that we've already made moves on. So what the state board decided to do with all those recommendations that came with this report was to delegate it to different committees. Now, I think it's important to note that these committees were designed and were created not in response to the JLARC report. The idea of these committees was actually being worked on before the JLARC report even came out. So this was kind of a happy coincidence, because what the state board said was, wow, we have these new committees. We have all these different things that we need to work on and we need to assess. Let's go ahead and delegate those to the committees. So we've got 3 different committees. Regional Councils Committee, thank you guys for participating. We have the Program Performance and Evaluation Committee and the Governance and Policy Committee. Some of you are on multiple of those, and I appreciate those board members who are. So those different recommendations were delegated to the different committees. And over the course of the last year, several meetings amongst all the committees have been taken on to tackle these issues. Really just doing a lot of discussion, a lot of data and analysis to figure out what are we doing wrong? What are some things that we can improve? And what were the different ideas that JLARC was looking at when they were forming this report? I'm happy to say we're about more or less over halfway through the JLARC recommendations at this point. In your packet, you'll see that everything is color coded. So if you see it in green, done. If you see it in yellow, in progress, there's 1 or 2 that are in red that the committees looked at and they said, you know what, this isn't going to be very high impact. We're not going to make any kind of movement at this time. Originally, we were hoping to be done with all of the committee or all of the JLARC recommendations by the end of this year. Fortunately, we're going a little bit slower than what we had anticipated. So we're looking at the first quarter of next year to have this completed. I do want you to know that all of the committees are open committee meetings. So if you have any comments, if there's anything that you want to pass on to the state board, this is your forum, but the forum doesn't end here. And you're more than welcome to show up to those committees, provide feedback on the JLARC recommendations. Many of our regional councils have sent letters in to express the viewpoints on those. I'm not going to stand here and read all of the JLARC recommendations to you. You have those in front of you. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to DHCD staff. I'm happy to have a conversation about that. But if you have any questions now, I'm happy to take those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Cody. Before we move into the next section, were there any questions, obviously, about what Cody said or the previous information? Anyone online have any questions?
Online. Feel free to drop questions in the chat throughout the meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, well, we get to move into kind of the meat of the meeting today. I will, before we get into kind of the facilitated discussion part, just want to provide a brief update on the engagement process that we went through this year. Chris Lloyd and myself partnered to reach out and meet with all of the regional councils. We were able to talk to everybody either in person or via Zoom as of last week. So the themes and that feedback is incorporated in the packet and the memo that has been distributed. So we did that. We also sent out a survey tool, and as we shared on some of those calls, some of that was a place to start for some of the conversations and feedback gathering, but also an opportunity for the foundation to grab stories and great examples of the work that's being done and has been achieved for, you know, the videos and just for us as a Go Virginia stakeholders. You know, we are doing some amazing things, and when we don't celebrate those small successes, we kind of move on to the next thing. And sometimes taking a pause and highlighting those is important just as much as the work is. So that was what those 2 tactics were used over this last, probably, I would say, maybe 6 months at the most. And from that, similar to some of the themes that we had heard in other engagements, the first one, and I'm just going to read a couple, of course, there's more details in the packet, but these are the ones that we pulled out and actually what fed into the categories that we'll use for discussion later. But the first one that I have highlighted is the feedback loop relative to the work groups and the project sponsors and the staff at different levels. Support organizations and DHCD can be improved. You know, timely communication around the subject matters or budget questions, and just making sure that that is a little bit more efficient and transparent was something that we've heard consistently for a little while now. And so that is something that has been brought to the state staff, and they will be focused on and looking ways to improve that. In terms of the grant approval process, regional councils have consistently expressed interest in a more flexible structure where the approval authority is delegated more to the councils, particularly to the per capita funding. This feedback, that type of flexibility and autonomy also speaks to I think Chris mentioned it earlier, the core intention of Go Virginia is kind of that innovative, that catalytic money that but for Go Virginia, this thing wouldn't have happened. And so having that flexibility at the regional and support staff level is something that, again, we heard consistently across the state. Regional councils also share concerns about the administrative grants and how those resources can be recognized at the support staff level. As an example, and I'll just share, this was new to me, even as a state board member, that the 8% admin allocation that can be recognized as projects get approved is restricted to that project. So a support organization cannot necessarily cover their costs with that 8% overhead if that staff is not working on the project directly. And so that flexibility and looking at how administrative and overhead allocations are distributed into the program staff is something that we heard also across the board. And the desire for enhanced communication between the state board and regional councils, that's one of the reasons this committee was formed. Cody alluded to the fact that Go Virginia is also just maturing as an organization. And so having a flatter committee-led board makes a lot of sense. But the regional council voice being a gap being there is not new. And there have been obviously initiatives that have started before, but we are at a point of maturity and sophistication at the Go Virginia level now that we can staff and have committee chairs and stuff. So we're hopefully moving forward on improving communication and council engagement between the state board and the regional council leadership. So those were some of the themes that we heard consistently across those conversations and even before 2024's initiatives. For those of us here today, anything kind of missing from that list? Again, these were just some of the there was more, but is there anything important that we want to bring to this conversation today before we move into the discussion part? Nope. Okay. Anyone online? As far as themes of feedback? Okay.
Regional councils having more authority, particularly with the per capita money. It also goes to the ability to recruit new council members. If I'm a business person and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to go to a Go Virginia meeting or I'm going to run my business, if I don't think I have any authority, I'm probably going to run my business. Most of these guys that are in business that are on the councils, or a lot of them in Region 3 anyway, I'm sure in others, they make $1 million decisions before they have the second cup of coffee in the morning. So to say that you don't have the authority to decide how the money gets spent in your region that is allocated to your region, you've got a growth and diversification plan, which the DHCD and the state board approved. If you can tie that to the growth and diversification plan, again, those of us that were here when W. Wynn said, he said the region's no better than the state where the money is needed in that particular region. So I think as we mature, if we want to continue to attract those business people to take their time to come and sit in a Go Virginia Regional Council, they've got to feel like that time is worth it as far as their impact. And I think one of the ways you do that is, now that we have some of this development, that you allow them to have more ability to say how that money is spent in their regions without having to go through such a state board approval process, particularly as it relates to the per capita funds. So I think they're connected is what I'm saying. It's not just the grant approval process.
Yep.
It's connected to how you're able to recruit people to be on the regional council and whether they think it's worth it to them or not to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I know personally, spending my time is the only resource I don't get back, right? So wanting to have it be valued and useful. And also, I mean, we're all experiencing this at the regional council and state board, the turnover and the succession of terms ending, and we're losing a lot of knowledge and historical experience. And so, you know, that recruitment, that was another theme that we heard as we talked to everybody is, you know, that succession planning is important and focused on right now, and some tools and some insights like that to help recruit, but also help onboard and orientate new people to how Go Virginia works currently, and moving that forward. Yeah.
In some of the, smaller regions, going back to my colleague's comment on talent, we do have a lot of folks that are rolling off right now at the state mandate right now. And, one of the things that we work a lot on in our region is brain drain. We're creating our own brain drain off the council right now as these folks roll over. Has the state given any consideration to creating, I don't know, a group that we can keep these folks involved some way after their terms expire, so that we keep them in the fold to continue to use them, glean their knowledge, whatever, because it really, especially in our region, we're so close, we beg, borrow, and steal to get great folks. Yeah. And, we've gotten, I think, between our two regions, probably the cream of the crop, but they are going off the board right now. And I hate to lose some of those folks. Bring it, Jordan.
Yeah.
One thing that we have done is we've kind of created an ex officio member of the executive committee where we've taken some of the folks that have been in leadership in the past that have rolled off, and we've kind of made it a little bit of a subset of the executive committee so that you at least have access to those people. Now we don't know how that's going to work yet exactly. We've got a couple people on it. Don't know whether it'll be effective, but that's one of the things that we've done to try to mitigate some of that loss of the people that do go back to 2013, 14, 15 that been through all of this. So
it would be nice to consider a whole lot of structure.
Okay.
We have that.
Okay. Yeah, I think ideas like this is the reason that this group is here. It's one of the things, and I'll kind of just use this as a transition into the discussion, and I'm going to stand up because I think it's a little bit easier to kind of facilitate from the front of the room maybe, but things like that and how we think about this regional council group as we will basically be able to decide what the structure and who the members are from the regional councils, like the representatives. So is a regional council representative past chair as a way to keep them connected? Is it a tool for your next vice chair? So they sit as a regional council rep here, and then the expectation is that they move into the next leadership role. I think that's some of the things that we can think about here today and get that started. But concrete ideas around like alumni engagement and how we keep them involved is, I think, important across the board. So if you don't mind, we can go ahead and move into the next slide part. So I'm dusting off my old HR hat where I used to do leadership training. So forgive me. I hope it's like riding a bike, but I might be a little rusty as far as kind of leading us through this conversation. But the latter half of our day today is an open discussion, and hopefully it will generate some ideas and some action and some next steps that we can take action on, because we have the authority at the council level, but also feed it back to the different staff levels. So the support staff and the state staff, there might be some very tactical things that at a program level, they can just kind of tweak. And so we want to get some of those out there. One thing that we will do today that's a little different than having flip charts and stuff up is that the staff, we're capturing all these as notes, and we'll make sure that we have everything that we talked about. And then the next agenda of this group will prioritize some of the things that we want to bring back to discussion and see what we can kind of move forward. And it would most likely be the things that we can move and kind of take care of quickly. And then the more strategic, long-term kind of collaborative initiatives would maybe become our kind of longer term work plan as a regional council. So we're just starting. We get to make some of this up as we go. And that's the beauty of it, but that's also why it's going to be a little vague at first. So I appreciate your patience as we go through this. So to kind of organize the conversation today, we're going to focus our discussion around 4 buckets. And Tom Franz from Hampton Roads, these are his, I can't claim them, but when he said this as a framework for productive and impactful collaboration, I was like, that's it. That's how I think that's how this group can stay strategic and kind of organize the ways that we're looking at the different layers of this program. And so the 4 things are connectivity, collaboration, innovation, and productivity. You mind? And so just like a loose definition for me around connectivity was connectivity when it's working well ensures smooth, efficient flow of information between different layers of stakeholders. And here it would be councils, the state staff, and the state board. So as we're thinking about that bucket, and you don't need to advance the slides, I'll do the descriptions. That's kind of where we're starting. But I mean, does connectivity, I mean, is there a different way that you would think about it? And what would that be if you want to share? So when connectivity and communication is better between regional councils and the state board, what can we achieve? What is possible? It's a big question, and who wants to try? Yeah, Deborah.
John King and Cody, and that's where our relationship with students. We have 100% of the state board of our application. Spend all our money. That's because of this relationship.
So good connectivity makes more efficient project approval. So that's one thing that is a benefit of that. What else?
Good day. So, Deborah's a good example of what she was talking about, but for me personally, as a board member and having done the regional as well, I think, the feedback to a board member as I'm working on projects with other regions or looking at things, gleaning stuff that's coming out of this region or those conversations, I can't tell you how many times I've read something that's come in, and then Deborah will convey this, and it didn't come through the written script, but boy, it was really good insight. And so being able to take that information as well and supply that as part of discussions for when we're looking at other regions or things like that. Sometimes we have the opportunity, I knew last year we had an opportunity to kind of mingle in a social setting as well in December, and that really helped. But, maybe I'm not really adding anything to say do it differently as much as saying what the value of it is, because so many times when as a board member you get this packet that's really thick and you're trying to get through it and be ready for the meeting, and pieces get lost. And I know one of the things we've been able to do is convey something in almost like a synopsis of, hey, you need to understand this, we're trying to play within the rules, but this is what's going on. So I think, it's a combination of that communication and connectivity that's making a big difference. But I just want to make sure I conveyed that. I think a lot of times it's state board members. I can't speak for everybody, but we really do want more information. We want that connection, and it's a matter of everybody in this room's probably got a meeting after this, right? I mean, you can come up with 10 reasons why I can't get to that, but boy, does it make a difference. And it may not just be that individual project. It could be what's on the plate. It could be a year from now. I know in the Valley here in Region 8, site development has been huge. We've been spending, and just getting that information. I didn't get that necessarily from a project. I got it from just constant communications. And so as we've seen different site projects come through, I'm like, okay, well, I get it. This is the third in a series of this, and this, sewer. But it also helps me. I know the partnership has been involved, Shenandoah Valley Partnership, in a number of site development projects. So it goes beyond that. So I think it's actually can't be understated enough that connectivity and the communication probably a little bit of hand in hand, but that's just a perspective from a board perspective.
Ben?
And I get your comment about how the state board needs to be more connected, but also among the regions, I feel like we need to be more connected and have a better understanding of what other regions are doing and what are some of the projects that other regions are having. And I don't know if maybe the support organizations within the regions are talking to each other more, and that's why the individual councils don't really have insight to that. But I feel that as a member of the council, I really don't know to a great extent what other regions are doing. And there might be opportunities for things that, regions could go after together that other members of the council may be able to provide, some assistance to, but we just don't have that insight. So I do think that a way for us to really come together and not just through the support organizations, but also through, wouldn't it be great if, we had folks who could, participate maybe in some of the other council's meetings just to hear what's going on.
Lynn, thank you. Delegate Maldonado, she has a comment, and then Yolanda, I'll go to you.
Well, I unraised my hand because that was a point I was going to make about this sort of cross communication, because I think that there are some, when I was there for our board meeting, our last board meeting in Danville, one of the things that was really interesting to me was how, Region 9, northern part of Region 9, the butts up against the southern part of Region 7, if they were looking at doing things together, they might be able to go after projects and funding together. And I think that's going to be really important as we think about how do we get the biggest bang for funding and in terms of impact across localities in Virginia. So already mentioned, but that was going to be my point.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate. Yolanda?
Yes, I think also with the connectivity, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit with that brain trust that's rolling off of the councils, especially in the regions, that I'm rolling into the chair position, and I'm actually new to the board. And so that building stronger relationships with those even rolling off, and also, as mentioned already, looking at what others are doing, what are best practices, a way for us to kind of, whether it's on your website, are we updating those to be able to talk about best practices so that other regions are not trying to create something that another region's already done and they can learn from those best practices.
Ready?
We used to have regional chair meetings, right? When we first started, we had meetings where you had the chairs of all the regions got together. This was pre-COVID, so you actually, what was that, Bill? We met somewhere in Richmond. Well, I forgot where that place was, but and so you had those meetings. I mean, now with the technology, what it is, it's probably easier to do it than it was then. But those were in-person meetings where you had at least chair and vice chair in the same room at the same time. And I guess we stopped doing those for whatever reason over the years, and probably COVID had a lot to do with that. But that was always a good way to get to what you're talking about. I guess our council has staggered terms for its members.
Yes.
Right. So I guess everybody does that, but that's another way for the brain drain to kind of postpone that a little bit.
Question, just structurally with the chair meetings, would you all bring like the next vice chair or other members of the council to kind of come to those with you?
Yeah, you could bring in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was actually where I was going to go also. Having the chairs and the co-chairs get together on a regular basis would be very beneficial, at least once a year. Going back to John's comment, I mean, the meeting we had in Richmond last year and the one we had in Danville this year, the connections you make and the exposure to other things are great. So if we could formalize more of that structure, I think it would be very, very beneficial. Give you one example. For those who did not go to Danville last year, Region 3 has done a wonderful job with GoTech. And I think it was Speaker Scott that says, how come this isn't in every region, in the state? I mean, it's a marvelous program. How far am I from Danville? I can throw a rock. I'm in Region 3 across where I live, and I knew nothing about the program. So being able to have that type of knowledge would be great. Another good piece, I'd add the word collaboration to your slide. I want to go back to Project Vital between Regions 9, 4, and 2. What a great piece of collaborative work. And I got to know Ethan and Wilson's on the line there. Several folks that worked on that project along with the three forces of nature, Sandra, Nikki Haley, and Aaron Bertram. But what a great project. Another one that we could probably replicate, across the state. The more of those type of collaborative efforts we have, I think the whole Commonwealth rises.
Just before the next slide is collaboration. So thank you for the segue. But before we move there, just I want to ask, how is connectivity different than communication? Because there might be gaps there that we would miss if we focus on, we don't kind of differentiate communication and connectivity. What does connectivity look like to you all? Sounds like meeting in person.
Sorry. Isn't like connectivity, isn't that like a push mechanism? It could be a newsletter, whereas well, that would be the communication part, the newsletters. The connectivity would be the collaborative part, the bi-directional exchange of information.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think we do a pretty good job of pushing information out, but that's like a broadcast. Can we make it more a dialogue? That's the way I probably phrase it.
Yeah, thank you for that word. Like dialogue to me, like that resonates because we can't, we can communicate all day long. It doesn't mean that people are listening or receiving the communications and the messaging. So,
but you also can't have connectivity without the communication.
I just don't want us to I think just holistically, we just don't say, oh, well, now we're sending out monthly emails, so everybody's connected. Like that's not the complete answer. And so just wanted to make sure I'm not by myself in that thinking. So just 1 second before. So I heard a couple of things as far as the regional council leadership meeting in person again, more consistently than we have been. Any other kind of structured ways? We talked about maybe a past chair, past leadership, for lack of a better way to put it, alumni engagement, emeritus, maybe structured there. Anything as far as that we can capture for our notes to kind of bring back to the group later. Structured ways to stay connected. Yeah.
My last job, right? So Region 9, we have something called the Tom Tom Fest, and that's in April. And some of you showed up for that because we had open Go Virginia meetings, and I think several of the regions did show up for one of the Tom Toms. It's one of those community celebration things, but I think it'd be nice because we have a virtual. Everybody's used to virtual communication now, right? That wasn't so true a few years ago. So maybe a physical meeting where open call for all regional members to show up and talk about some of these things a couple times a year, but do it virtually too. So it'd be like, this is where we're going to discuss all the issues that came up, best practices and things like that. So I think some of the regions did try to do that before. I don't think we've done it in a little while, but just open meetings for talking about best practices and other things. It's been done in smaller ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, I want to show you what we do.
That's the after party. Yolanda.
I was also thinking with the connectivity, is there a way, I know there's been discussion about when projects are funded, how do we down the road look at kind of the impact? Is there a way to connect the projects so that they can see what other people have done and then we can get feedback from them. Maybe it's a celebration or whatever, but figuring out a way that we can capture the impact we're actually having when these organizations or projects are funded.
Great. I think Region 3, they have an annual meeting every year, and it's kind of, they highlight success, like, that's where I first saw the GoTech bus, was a couple years ago, and the SOVA Innovation Center. But yeah, I think things like, again, we need to celebrate the successes as we do the hard work too. So, all right, let's move on to collaboration. That is definitely a theme and core to what we're doing through the program and probably just our work in general. And so our Go Virginia is built on that foundation, and it's powerful. And, you know, we are doing it at the regional level, at the project level. But where's the, like, the next level of collaboration, kind of the statewide or several regions collaborating? Vital is one recent example where 3 regions were coordinated and able to get those projects through. But what other kind of big opportunities do you all see in front of us if we collaborate a little bit more strategically across regions?
That are collaborating, so it's not so, they see it as a regional or state impact or success, and not just competition with other regions. What I've heard and seen is that some people be collaborating because they're having a hard time figuring out who's going to be the lead on it. Who do they feel is going to get the most attention? How can we really begin to communicate so they see it as a holistic impact for the entire region?
Well, I know one thing that Tom Franz talks about quite a bit is actually looking at the map of the regions and where we have some of the smaller regions. Would it make sense to maybe combine some of those smaller regions so that, you know, it's not so much of a competition, but they really are working together because they're combining their resources? And I don't know if any consideration has ever been, you know, to look at how those regions were, you know, set aside and maybe re-looking at that.
Okay. That's one layer. One thing that all regions have is a growth and diversity plan. And I'm asking for my knowledge too. Has there been collaboration where you all have taken your plans and said, oh, we both have an ag cluster? Can we go, like, does that type of work happen with the plans as a guide? Can you share a little bit about that? Just so we.
Well, I think a lot of that is done at the staff level.
Okay.
You know, when they see, like, we know Region 3, we know that we'll probably have more in common with the more rural regions. And so if we're looking for something in you know, our first move is to go to one of those regions and say, hey, have you done that? We're very fortunate. We got Brian David, there's POFAR that worked with us from a staff standpoint. So they know so many people that it's easy for them to call somebody in Region 2 or, you know, wherever it might be. And, you know, they've kind of got that easy access to be able to do that. So I think maybe we're a little bit spoiled. We kind of looked at that staff person to say, hey, let me call somebody in a region that's similar to ours and see if they have the same issue. But they do a lot of that calling to other regions to say, what are you seeing? So.
Okay.
I agree. The staffs do a good job with that, but I find that a lot of this is done ad hoc. So if there's things like in Region 3, we'll take distressed areas in Region 2 and maybe align them with an agricultural bio type of project, since that's not in one of our growth and diversification areas. And it works out very well. But if we could standardize that more, I think it would be a godsend, to be quite honest with you.
So not to jump ahead to like regional council meeting format yet, but as we develop how this body engages and works together, could a standing agenda item be around working sessions around where we can collaborate and kind of bring those, like, part of the time that we're here together is we work on things and have that opportunity to start to collaborate and bring things back to our regions. Just asking. And they can,
Yes, to answer your question, the more exposure you give to it, the better. I would almost think about it as, what is our pitch book? Okay, what are the things that's going on around the state so that we could draw attention and awareness? I'm sure there's other great ideas happening in regions we don't know about that we could be building off of or taking it to the next layer. Hopefully, 3 or 4 regions pick up what we're doing with Vital and take it to the next level. We want to take what's going on at GoTech and take it to the next level. But that comes back to the awareness part of it, having the conversation, thinking outside the box in terms of funding, because it may require us to go back and rethink funding at the state level in terms of how we do some of these things.
comment online?
I'll chime in just quickly. I would just say that I'm really appreciating this conversation around collaboration and highlighting opportunities to work together. In the last meeting, when I, like someone who also just mentioned, I recently found out about GoTech and immediately went to the speaker saying, just as he kind of shared, why isn't this in every middle school? But if we don't know about these opportunities, we won't be able to do it. I think there's so much power in being able to bring things collectively, because the goal is to improve opportunities across the Commonwealth. And there are so many things I think that are common themes across localities that make sense for us to huddle up together to do. And so, it's not really a question. I'm just sitting here sort of ready to sort of burst out of my skin with excitement about the opportunities to kind of move forward more collaboratively in this direction as a new member to GoTech. It's very exciting to move in that direction.
I think that also gives you some credit, to having a state board member from each region. I mean, that state board member can take that information back, to a regional council too. It can go that way as opposed to maybe feeding from the regional council forward. So the other thing, I mean, it does spread. I mean, GoTech is now in at least 3 regions, maybe 4. So the word does get out, but I think you still fight some of those silos. You don't think about reaching across. We have a hard enough time reaching across county lines, regional lines within the region. So we're still learning to do that. And every once in a while we shoot ourselves in the foot when we're trying to do that. I think the only problem with combining regions, I mean, Region 3 is the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut.
Wow.
So when you get that big, trying to be sure you're getting the information out to 15 jurisdictions, you have to be very purposeful when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you just can't put them together and assume the information is automatically going to be disseminated some sort of way.
Right. So we started to talk a little bit about this group building the foundation for collaboration. And it sounds like some of that could be very tactical things that we do when this body is pulled together several times a year. Just mentioned state board members being more involved in their regional council meetings and engagement there. What else can we kind of grab today as far as like just getting the notes, and again, so we can capture it? Could add more structure and consistency. I think that's what I'm hearing. It's the consistent collaboration and also how efficient we're making that for the volunteers that are involved in this.
It may be interesting to do a pattern match. I mean, I'm so impressed with the work that Sandra, Nikki, and Aaron did on Vital. I mean, there were 3 regions that had a similar type purpose around life sciences that they brought together. How can we win and not create a lot of duplication and replication? And it created a new level of collaboration between the regions in terms of what labs are going to be in what area. So it wasn't an us versus them. So is there a way that state staff could sit back and say, okay, out of all the proposals we're looking at and everything that's coming on, maybe these are opportunities for life sciences. Maybe this is a good opportunity for high-tech manufacturing. or whatever they are, and then encourage those type of state, wide type of collaborative efforts. I don't know what I don't know, and I'm
Right.
sure I have my peers the same way. Is there a way we could do more better pattern matching in that regard?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's like that 20,000-foot view, like who has the view of all the different projects coming in and can connect those dots. Yolanda, you said something earlier about kind of the kind of competition for projects, and a question around my impression sometimes from the project side of a Go Virginia initiative is the level of work it takes to put a Go Virginia grant together and project together. And it's not, at least, again, my limited experience being on that side of the table, that it's less about the credit for getting the grant done, more about like who actually has time and energy to pull it together. What are your all's experience around kind of the willingness to kind of get into the work, but also is the dynamic around credit for the work something to be aware of too? Okay.
I've seen both, where it made sense for the larger entity to really be the fiscal and kind of oversee all of the writing. But if it was similar initiative that both organizations actually would be working on, that's why I saw more of that competition.
Whose logo is going to be bigger?
Yes. Who's going to get the media attention? Who's
Right.
going to, yeah. And it should be both, and figuring out how people can communicate that to say, this is going to be bigger and better because we're doing it together.
Anything else on the collaboration? Anybody online?
You've also got two approval processes too. And you got what the regional council does
Yeah.
to approve it, then you got to do it all over again for the state's side,
Okay. Yeah.
which goes back to the per capita piece. Who really should have the main approval process with that.
Yeah.
If I'm spending my own money according to my growth and diversification plan in my own region.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is you get it approved and then you got to go get it approved again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things. We should go back and do a postmortem on Vital between 9, 4, and 2. Because a lot of the things that we're talking about, we had to go through 3 approvals, multiple up and down. We actually did a cost of how much state time we'd spent and staff time and volunteer time to get that thing through, and it was a lot of money. But how can we take what we learned from that or the other cross-regional products and streamline it so that we don't fall into the same traps over and over and over again? That could be a good lessons learned.
I have so many things going through my mind, and I've been trying to figure out how to focus it on one tactful. If right now I saw that there's like 9 different industry clusters that have been identified in Go Virginia, and then each region kind of decides which ones they want to focus on. Maybe the thought is the regions come together to discuss one industry cluster and then bring associations and big employers or whatnot to that conversation to see if there's maybe a statewide initiative that Go Virginia can then add on and then identify the regions that then would meet that need. And do that for each industry cluster. Like, for example, we had one come for energy, which is not one of our identified clusters, but then we found that we had 2 very experienced energy experts that talked about all these other associations and what all they have going on in the statewide, and the applicants didn't know anything about it. So I think bringing all the experts to the table with all the executive directors or some select on the council to do a brainstorming for all the regions, and then everybody kind of like picks what they want to do off of that.
I think that's a great segue kind of to the next section, which is innovation. And I think exposure to ideas and opportunities is probably like one piece of that. I'm moving on to but before we move into that, what I did capture from those last couple comments, and I can totally get it. I mean, group projects are hard. anyway. And then when you add layers of red tape and approvals, the energy around doing that work fades. And so that, and then I captured that. And then the other piece is kind of how we underwrite these projects. And if there are areas that it can move to more of a streamlined, almost checkbox or kind of a fast yes, because it hits certain strategic requirements or is at a certain dollar amount. I mean, there's some of that in there already, but there's still layers that we can look at as a program to hopefully improve that. So the innovation piece, and I think that's where your comments took me personally was, you don't know what you don't know. And unless we're learning about the different things and new industries here that already exist or are coming in because of different resources, like how are we going to help our regions curate and pull projects together? So talked about energy. So that's one topic area. But are there other like kind of areas that you all know about that could, that if we think about it more strategically as maybe two regions or statewide, that we can create a competitive advantage for the Commonwealth? And wanted to just capture those because those might be guest speakers down the road, but also there might be something we could start here today. So starting with the first one, what are you all seeing that we should know more about as a Go Virginia group? So energy is one.
So we're very unique in the Commonwealth in terms of like transportation and shipping. If you think about the port, you think about the rail systems we have, and then the interstate highway and the inland ports. So within Region 2, we've got 3 of the main major truck manufacturers that are building autonomy, that are working on, alternate fuel sources and alike. But there's no really comprehensive strategy that goes across. I mean, honestly, the folks at Torque are having to go to Arizona to do the test runs when they should be doing them from the inland port at Strasburg to Wytheville and in between. That should be, hours to be focused on. So smart roads, as we think about transportation, integrated logistics. We were chatting earlier. I think we're probably starting to miss the ball in terms of where quantum computing and AI is going. I'd love to see an overall strategy with those. And once again, we've got some of the greatest universities on the planet. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we had a panel from George Mason and James Madison and ODU and VCU and Virginia Tech and UVA, some of their few, and the community colleges, to come back and talk to us about things that they see that's going to be hot that we should be investing on 5 years today for 5 years and 10 years down the road of growth and not wait for it to happen.
Yolanda?
I think we're seeing this across the Commonwealth, but the data centers and how what is the impact and how should regions be preparing for that, and how can we work collaboratively in that effort?
I got a mic here. So again, before I was State Board Region 9, and my specialty is the entrepreneurial side. And of course, I have some economic development experience, but would it be valuable? Because I know governors get briefed on economics of the future. We get briefed, I think, every once in a while from VEDP as from the board. But would it be valuable to know what the other states are doing, especially since we are not competing against ourselves and our state economic development, right? We don't try to compete against each other within the regions, but we do compete with Maryland, North Carolina, Tennessee, wherever. And I don't know, because I know Maryland has a great entrepreneurial development system called TEDCO. And I know North Carolina has their Golden Leaf economic development programs. What should we be doing, especially the borders? But it's everywhere now, right? Who should we hear from, and what kind of information could we get? And how do we get them updated and all that? So that's just something that I think some of us, we'd really like to know what's going on now that the other states are doing.
Let me make sure, we have representatives from Region 7 and 6 online. Any comments or thoughts from the virtual audience?
I just mentioned, Liz sent me a text talking about AI. The Virginia Chamber has a project that they're looking at that's, I think Region 3 is going to participate in. And of course, a lot of the data center traffic, a lot of that's coming down to Southern Virginia and the power associated with how you go and water associated with that. So, and that's going to affect everybody. So if there's a lot of places, if we could figure out how to do power and water for data centers, we'd be a hero, if we could figure that out.
Yep. John Anzavino from Region 6 on AI. That's a very hot topic in the I-95 corridor from Caroline on up through Stafford, which is part of our region. Not so much in the rest of the region, which runs down to Gloucester and is more rural. But we were actually working on the premise of working on a grant application for training for AI with some of our students. And we were dissuaded from that because the Department of Education indicated through our staff that they were going to be handling that. So I think there's probably some communication at the state level that needs to take place between the Department of Education and other state agencies as to what Go Virginia is doing, because AI is, of course, here on us now, and we're going to need a lot of folks in that area, and particularly younger folks need to be trained in that area. So that's an important, I think, consideration. From a regional interaction standpoint, we work with our neighbors to the south in Hampton Roads, and we've had success with a very large grant in regard to sea level rise and innovation concerning what's going on in coastal resiliency. Those types of efforts don't get highlighted a whole lot, and certainly they're not applicable to the Blacksburg and Harrisonburg region, but they are applicable to other parts of the country, and that needs to be highlighted as well about the success of Go Virginia and regional cooperation, if it could be.
Thank you, John.
So, John, I'd love to partner with you on the AI piece. We've got a grant coming out of Region 2 that's addressing that. We heard the same thing, but we pushed back and went back and did research. 2 out of the 4 community colleges, they're begging for it. Region 2 is the home of the state's largest and public and private universities. We see fragmented efforts. We're participating with Region 3 on the chamber. I think the chamber should be applauded for having the foresight to go out and wanting to do this. This is going to hit us like a ton of bricks, and I don't think that we realize the impact that both AI and quantum is going to happen. So the more we can get in front of this, I think it's better, so sooner rather than later. But if it's John, I will get our staff to hook up with you guys in terms of what the grant's looking like, but we should continue to push this forward because there's a sense of urgency here.
Oh, I agree completely. And that's great. And that's a very positive outcome for this call because, we had just let the application languish. So I think when we talk to staff that they'd be anxious to see that move forward. So thank you for offering that.
And I'll send you the white papers, anybody's interested. I wrote 2 for the chamber, white papers, one on the impacts and the job that's going to be impacted by this. And then I wrote one that's related to our clusters in Region 2 and how we should be considering the opportunity. But I just got back from the Middle East, and I can tell you the rest of the world is spending a ton of money on this, a ton of money. So.
I just wrote down resource library.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's give it the delegate and then Yolanda. Oh, you're on mute, delegate.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for raising the issue of AI. And I just want to offer myself as a resource. As some of you may know that I handle a lot of our AI and new and emerging technology issues for the General Assembly and sit on the AI subcommittee at JCOTS and have access to some resources that are interesting that might be examples for one being that I sit on a multi-state AI policy work group of state legislators from around the country. And we have examples like in Connecticut, they have an AI academy set up between workforce and their community college system. So if I can be a resource, please feel free to reach out. And the second thing is, yes, I would love to also have a copy of the white paper that was just offered, or the 2 white papers, as we help to make things robust. We have a technology and innovation caucus that I chair, and I often will bring these things before legislators, because part of what we have to do, particularly with quantum, particularly with AI, and even the life sciences, biosciences, we have to educate legislators, because this is a little bit more complex. It's not the general knowledge that most people have. So part of my function and role is to help educate our folks so that we can be great advocates and informed legislators around these issues.
One of the things that, I'm sure you've seen this story too, that the co-founder of NVIDIA, I think it was 2 years ago, he gave $50 million, and then NVIDIA matched it with another $50 million for a total of $100 million supercomputer grant for the University of Florida that all the public universities in the state of Florida will be able to access. I would love for us to start thinking about how we build that in Nelson County, Virginia, for all of the major universities to use, because, hey, quite frankly, if we have to build 5 or 6 for the major universities, it's not cost efficient. We build one big one like they did in Florida, we could probably do some great things. Just something to consider when you go back into session.
Love it. Yep.
Rhonda's been waiting. Oh, sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to share, I sat on the state workforce board. Is a Go Virginia State person on that board? I wasn't sure. So I think it would be something to consider if they're not already participating, because some of these issues, especially with workforce and the jobs and the companies that are coming, are discussed in those state board meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out.
I'm a lot better with anecdotal stuff that I remember that easier. I was at a bank conference about a month ago, and we had a speaker on AI. And he said that about a year ago, a group got together and they were looking to the future of AI, and they looked at what was going to be happening in 10 years. They got to that level in 6 months. So if you don't think this is going to hit you like a ton of bricks,
yeah,
I walked away from that meeting. Number one, I'm board chair of this bank. I walked away scared to death, first of all. And second of all, saying we're going to need 5 people in my small bank just to watch what's going on in the AI environment.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a massive change we're talking about. And it was really impressed on us. You're going to need somebody inside your organizations that is looking at what other people are using AI to say about your business or your organization. It's not what you say on AI, it's what other people are saying about you and whether that's really true or not. And you sit and think about the scope of that and the amount of computing power that you have to do that. It's really just mind-boggling.
It's exponential growth and how it learns. It's straight up. Lynn?
I just wanted to mention another one of the innovative technologies that we've identified in Region 5 is the unmanned systems space. And so I don't know the extent to which other regions are looking into that as well, but I just wanted to mention that.
I think Tom said that they're looking, soon they'll be dropping people off with these unmanned.
Yeah. Air taxis.
Oh. I mean, I'm game to try new things, but I don't think I want to be the first passenger. Question, Chris, for the foundation. Some of the things on that website, I know this, it's old in my head, my memory of what's on the website. It's pretty user friendly, and there have been it's easy to find projects and stuff. Are there white papers and data sources on the foundation? Okay. 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 Great. Mm-hmm. Great. So we do have some tools. Okay. Sorry. Yes, Ann?
Sure. So I'm an urban planner by training, so I always think about infrastructure as opposed to the workforce piece that I'm learning. But when I hear about AI, I mean, you think about what y'all were talking about earlier with energy, and data centers, and just making sure that those three are linked as part of this discussion to ensure that we don't just fall behind in terms of being ready just from a capacity and a transmission perspective. But I think it's intriguing to think about finding a place in, like you said, Nelson County, Cumberland County, the center of the state, from that perspective. So, and just, I don't know if y'all are aware, but Joe Lurch with VACO has produced a pretty fascinating sort of primer on data centers and energy in Virginia through their podcast. That's well worth a listen.
What is the name of that podcast?
It's the Virginia Association of Counties. So Joe Lurch is one of their lead lobbyists, and I think he's got about 5 episodes up there now. I mean, it's on whatever podcast app you listen to, but highly recommend that.
Okay. That's great. I also heard the Virginia Chamber mentioned a couple times. What other kind of statewide resources or views should we grab today as far as like getting content, getting speakers, project? Okay.
Controlled environment ag is another big one, certainly in Region 3 that we're looking at. And that's, again, that's something that depending on the facility, you can do anywhere. And what we've tried to look at it is not only the large economic development, like Plenty and, you know, those types of air farms, those types, but there's also a component where you take the existing farmer that already has infrastructure, and how do you give him a source of revenue in the months that he's not using some of that infrastructure in the controlled environment ag, you know, space. So that's a big thing that's coming. The Institute in Danville that you guys were at is doing a lot of work in that area. Virginia Tech's doing a lot of work in that area. So I think you're going to see some projects come out of Region 3 that in this, and already have seen some, but more coming in this controlled environment ag arena. So, but that's something you could do anywhere. I've got a friend of mine that works on a storefront in Arlington, and the business is growing lettuce for the restaurants in the Northern Virginia area.
Yeah.
So it's something that touches everybody.
Yeah, I think there's one in Goochland.
And part of what they're doing on that one too, it's a carbon capture initiative that'll come out of that also, which is very good. We talked about energy, but we should probably list the energy sources around the state for possible collaborations. I know there's, you know, big wind efforts out in the Hampton Road areas. We still have got a lot of fossil fuel in Region 1, a lot of natural gas, Region 1 and Region 2. The micro nuclear piece out of Lynchburg with Framatome and BWXT. Think about all of those, you know, energy sources, and are there ways that we could work together?
Great. Yolanda, and then we'll move on to.
I think also in line with the ag is ag tech, agriculture technology.
And so, thank you. So having topics like this and opportunities to learn more like that is valuable, and we should layer that into the work that we're doing. All right, so productivity. So all of us are volunteers, or most of us here in the room are volunteers relative to the Go Virginia time that we put in. And so we definitely want this next group and this next meetings that we ask you to come to be valuable and a good use of everybody's time, because we don't need more meetings to come to unless they're useful. So what are some of the things that you would feel good about when you're coming and volunteering your time, bringing your thoughts and experience to the room? What do you want to get out of it personally, and also for your region? And so we can kind of have that as parameters in mind.
This is probably not the productivity you were looking for, but I really think we need to look at, you know, each region gets $250,000 to excuse me, to administer the region. That's been the same since 2017. So I know a lot of big folks don't spend it, which is fine. But on those particular rural regions that have to spend it, I doubt that many of us are operating on 2017 dollars. So at some point, the productivity within the region to surface these projects is going to decrease because we're not going to have the staff to administer.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out a way to inflation adjust that or another way to get to some of additional funds. I don't know what the answer is, but we can't be looking here 20 years from now and expecting to operate on the same $250,000 we did in 2017.
Yeah.
Now that's a different kind of productivity, but
Yeah. Well, no,
one that's a real issue. If you're in a region that doesn't have a Virginia Tech or Hampton Roads Foundation or some of the others that have other resources that they can use.
yeah. And I run a nonprofit. So that 8% overhead allocation, that restricted,
Absolutely.
that definitely pings something for me. And, personally, where maybe there's some flexibility on how that overhead, those monies are recognized at the support organization.
One of the things that Region 3 has really looked at is the leadership portion. How do you surface the next set of leaders? I don't know. I'm sure most everybody, when you look at the people that are attending civic meetings, those kinds of things, they all look a lot like me. They're 70 years old. How do you get that next group of leaders to want to be involved, and how do you make it worth their while? Well, to do some of that, it takes funding.
Mm-hmm.
So you start taking that out of the $250,000 to do that or fund any other study. And all of a sudden, well, how do I pay for support staff? How do I pay for a physical agent, et cetera, et cetera? How do I keep up the publicity that's in the region? So we've got to come to grips with this bucket of 250 that was set aside how many ever years ago. And it's, that's not going to work
Right.
long term.
And let me ask this, I remember some inconsistencies on travel costs for regional council members as they're potentially attending meetings. Are they reimbursed for gas or no? Okay. Oh. I'm sorry.
It looked like Delegate Maldonado's hand was up.
Oh, no. Anything else?
John and Zanvino's hand is up.
Oh, John, thank you.
Good pronunciation of that last name. From a more mundane standpoint and logistically oriented, as this committee moves forward, we were excited to hear about it in Region 6, but if we could set a schedule of when these meetings will take place, once the determination is made that the committee will be continuing to meet, that would be greatly appreciated. As we've said many times today, everybody's a volunteer and everybody has conflicting schedules. So just a logistical note.
Yeah, thank you, John. And actually, because we are running close to the time, let's get into some of that and preferences there. So as far as meeting cadence, the state board meets quarterly. This is going to be about the same size of a group. This because of the statutes that we're under, this is a public meeting. We can alternate between in-person and virtual. And so wanted to hear, before we set that type of schedule and cadence, what you all think is reasonable and we can consistently do. Is it quarterly, twice a year?
Two comments. I want to go back to your question and then go into the cadence. So what does success look like? I would love us to come back and have the three major items that are on the majority of the region's mind that we could surface back to the state board every meeting, and then have a scorecard. How are we working on them? How are we tracking? Red, yellow, green type of thing. In terms of cadence, I would love to see quarterly before we go into the state meeting so that we can continue to surface items up.
Okay. Quarterly feels reasonable. As far as the representative from the region, what are your thoughts on how that person is recruited? Is it chair? Is it a new person? What kind of parameters do we want to set for their participation here And also the expectation that they are participating consistently as part of their term or their engagement with this council on behalf of your regions. So thoughts on that?
We took a member off our executive committee, and that person has to come back and report to the executive committee and the whole council every quarter. So Richmond, who couldn't be here today, I'm sitting in for him, but he'll be the regular person, and everything that comes out of this meeting, he'll come back and discuss with us, and we'll propagate it out through the rest of the regional council.
And do all
Yeah, from Region 6, we have an individual who would really like to attend these meetings. Unfortunately, the short notice of this meeting, he's traveling internationally. So it will be a member of our board who's a senior member of our board and is active in the organization who displays an interest in really bettering Go Virginia. So those have been the criteria that we've used in Region 6.
Was that one of your executive members that you?
He has been in the past. Right now, he is not on the executive committee. But he's a very active member of the board and very knowledgeable in a number of areas.
well, so
You take someone, it's like how we grow the next set of leaders. So some from the executive committee, maybe they move to vice chair, then chair, whatever, but we continue that continuity in terms of building the next set of folks that's going to be, carrying the flag for us.
yeah, Eddie, that's how, I mean, I see that opportunity too. And I think just not defaulting to, oh, it's the chair or the vice chair because because of that opportunity. Also, it's again, we're asking someone to volunteer their time, and what the priority I think for this group should be is someone that can serve consistently for a minimum of at least 1 year. Because if we're meeting quarterly, then that's 4 engagements that they're able to commit to, and we know that voice and that representation will be consistent. So we don't have to catch up everybody every meeting. So if we can kind of walk away today committing to the committees will nominate who they think is appropriate, that have experience in the region and maybe leadership goals or engagement at the local level, but also can consistently commit to engaging in this group for a year. Okay. Okay, great. We'll start there. I mean, again, this is new, right? This is a new committee. We get to try some things and learn and adjust if we need to.
But if you put out the guidance that you're looking for hypos, high potential individuals that do this, and this is a growth opportunity for them, that may help set the stage for all 9 regions.
Great. That's fine. We'll do that. But. Okay. So we agreed to quarterly. We'll flip between in-person and hybrid just for ease. And also in-person location, is challenging. We picked this area thinking at the max, it was about a 3-hour drive for the furthest people away. As we get into our next in-person meeting, we will probably want to have that conversation around location. And again, making sure that we're not overtaxing one region or another every time. So let's see. Anything else as far as, you mind going back to that slide? I had those questions on there. Eddie, I like what you said about the dashboard as far as like this group will identify 2 or 3 priorities for improvement and kind of like influence up to the state level that we can stay focused on. I also heard that topical presentations and things around like AI, energy, the universities, bringing that consistently to this group so we can learn and again, take things back to the work that we're doing at the local level. Anything else as far as what would be a valuable use of this group? I'm sorry, the state? Other states. Yep, got that. Okay.
It kind of builds off this. So I am brand spanking new, like a week into this. Does Go Virginia have a statewide presence in social media and outreach? It does. So I think that's not being utilized. So I believe that all of the regions, well, ours, we've been kind of shorthanded for a while, is outreach to the community of what is Go Virginia and what are all the initiatives that we're doing, and then also praising some of the other regions of what they're doing that could be something we do in ours. Because that pipeline that you're wanting to bring in and develop needs, you can't just depend on your current council. Like, we need to be able to utilize all those sources to get info and then let them know about the public events for them to come and become more knowledgeable. And then if they really love it, then you got your pipeline without us having to go out and find it ourselves. And so maybe on the state level, creating content that all the regions can use, talking about Go Virginia, doing it in bits and pieces that are easy to consume quickly, like on social media and Instagram, is, videos or pictures or things like that, that all can be shared and used by everyone.
Yeah, my marketing colleague calls them snackable.
Yeah,
content.
and each of the regions we don't have the time or the resources to be creating all that content. So if there's something that could be used for all of us to create that outreach, would be useful.
That's great, because we've heard other versions of toolkits, like onboarding and orientation and marketing toolkits has also come up through our conversations. I want to go.
Because our region is so large, Region 3, we've used a small PR firm out of Farmville since we started, and they do, right. So they do, newsletters, emails, Facebook stuff, and it's blurs, but there's certainly nothing wrong with the state looking at all of those regions that do that and then pulling information from that. Oh, absolutely. Well, for us, it's pretty much mandatory, because again, our region is the side of Rhode Island and Connecticut. So if we don't have some social media presence, that we have like 1,500 followers that look at those releases. So if we didn't have that, how in the world is somebody in Brunswick County going to know what's going on in Martinsville? Not going to happen. So in our case, maybe it's a luxury, but it's really not.
Well, I think there's an event in Roanoke tonight that someone posted in the chat. Yes, yeah. Great. We'll be sure that the information gets out as far as a recap goes.
I do think this youth leadership deal is a big part of this pipeline that we bring along. Maybe there's a way we can share best practices among the regions if somebody's doing something that is trying to get younger folks involved with Go Virginia or anything else for that matter. That might be something we could share as well.
Like a succession planning kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're close to time, and Dr. Downey's here with us. I'm going to recap next steps and then ask you if you don't mind doing some closing remarks to wrap us up. But so our next steps. So first, we will bring a recommendation to the state board in December and recommend that the original state board committee expands to an advisory council, and that council will have one representative from each region as part of that makeup. We will get into a quarterly cadence for this group to convene, and some of the things that we need to tactically take care of will be, there's a high-level charter that was part of the passing of this committee, but looking at that just to make sure that it's complete enough, but also generic enough to give us flexibility to kind of be an advisory group that we want to be. So we'll need to, at the next meeting, look at that and probably approve that at the council level, at this level. And then before that meeting, I definitely heard some very concrete things that we can do as far as setting up this next conversation with some agreed upon priorities that we focus on as a regional council, some information sharing, and sounds like some peer learning and an opportunity to do that, whether it's, a lunch afterwards or we do that as part of the actual agenda to be determined. What we will do is ask you all for feedback as part of this. Eddie used the word dialogue earlier this morning, and I think the this group will only be as powerful as the engagement that we get from each other. So if it is the chairs, like kind of sending, if we're just communicating and not connecting, then we're not gonna, then these meetings just become rubber stamps, you know? And so I don't think any of us want to do that. So when we send you and ask for feedback, please engage. And even if it's just a phone call and the email's too long to write, no problem. But we need this to be a conversation because we're just getting this started. And it really, this is where the power is for the work that we do. And we have the opportunity to leverage it. So thank you for being here today and spending your time, and look forward to working with you more in the future. And Dr. Downey, thank you for hosting us, and love to give the floor to you.
Well, it's my pleasure to host you. Sorry I couldn't be here this morning to greet you, but I just wanted to thank you for what you do for Go Virginia and for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Community colleges and higher ed in general are an integral part of Go Virginia, as you know, often partners on most of the grants that are submitted, and higher ed and the community college system in particular stands ready to support your work in any way that we can, including meeting space. So you're welcome here anytime, and I'm sure any of the community colleges in any of the regions would be happy to host the regional meetings that you want to have in person. I really like the idea of the regional council being a catalyst for state strategy. I think you were mentioning that in relation to quantum computing and AI. There are other areas that I think we sometimes overlook, and I can't help but mention workforce. It's been alluded to, but I think we're looking at the wrong issues of workforce. I think we tend to think of it as, if we can get young people to be aware of jobs, then we're done with workforce. And I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to the demographic cliff that is coming in terms of the workforce. There will not be enough people to replace the workforce that is currently working. And every indication is that the number of jobs are going to go up, not down. So I think that also requires the regional councils in particular, but the state, to come up with some strategy about beyond talent attraction, which we talk about in economic development, attracting talent to a region, is what are we going to do about attraction of people to the state to make sure we're not losing population, but we're gaining it. And particularly about the labor market participation rate. There are studies that show that many young people, because of the wealth transfer from baby boomer generation, don't feel the need to work. They can live with their parents until they're 35, 40. They can inherit with their parents' money. They're addicted to video games, opioid addiction. All of these have been identified as a challenge with the labor market participation rate. So I think it's something the state has to think about, is if the labor market participation rate goes down and we're not attracting more people to Virginia, who is going to do these jobs? We should be thinking about strategies in areas of the state that there's high unemployment. Have we thought about training for jobs that aren't in that region? That's really challenging for our regions to think about. But can we do it using technology, whereas the people stay in that region, but they're working for companies in Northern Virginia or other regions that have low unemployment? That's one of the things we were successful with our first Go Virginia grant. It was on cybersecurity, and we were able to attract a company from Northern Virginia to set up a satellite location here and have jobs created here that cost less for the company, but were high pay for this region. So I think we need to be thinking of a strategy about workforce from a perspective that is beyond, let's bring more information to middle school kids, which is important. We got to continue to do that, but we need to also be thinking of other strategies. So thanks for letting me get on my soapbox just for a few minutes, and really appreciate you being here. And anytime we can help, I'm more than willing to do that. So thank you.